What makes this rich man a fool? I've heard this question many times as I read our text this week, and it's a good question. The rich man acts pretty reasonably at first glance. His land produces more than he can store, and so he prepares to build bigger barns and then retire happily with plenty saved up. It's not a particularly strange course of action. So why is the rich man a fool? The answer lies not so much in what the rich man has and does, but in what he doesn't have and doesn't do. When given abundance, he turns inward and thinks only of himself. He believes he can rely on himself and his great wealth all alone, and he misses entirely the wealth of God and neighbor. He is given a chance, as we all are, to think with generosity of someone beyond himself, and he completely passes it by. This is what makes him a fool. The rich fool's isolation is clear in the way that he talks to himself about his wealth and his plans. I will do this, he says. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. It is here that God enters the one-sided conversation with a booming, you fool. This very night, your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be? Well, at least one answer to God's question is clear. The things that the rich man has laid up for himself will no longer be his. And in his self-centeredness and certainty, it sounds as if the rich man has not planned for how he will give his wealth away, whether in life or in death. He has not given to God, he has not given to others, and now he can no longer give to himself. There was another way, though, and it would start with this rich man understanding that the land producing was a gift from God, and that at both his wealthiest times and his poorest, he is not alone. He is in community with God and his neighbors, both to be blessed by them and to bless them. This man and his lack of generosity, even in death, makes me think of a contrasting story from my own life. It's important to preface this by saying that the parable of the rich fool is part of a longer passage where Jesus drives home that God knows what we need and God will provide. Immediately after this parable comes the famous passage that includes, "Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown in the oven, how much will he clothe you, you of little faith?" I do truly believe that God provides for us because I have seen it over and over. One of the more dramatic examples happened to me in my early 20s. I was living in Minneapolis in a shared apartment, and I had recently been laid off from my job. I was having trouble finding work, and I couldn't pay my rent that month. I was very stressed about that, and somewhat unusually for me, I prayed about my finances. In that prayer, I told Jesus that I needed him to do something. I needed Jesus to get some money somehow because I needed to pay my rent. I went about my life for a couple of days, but within that week, I got an email from an unknown address. The email said that I had been named in the will of a woman in Canada, and that the lawyers for her estate were trying to locate me to give me a diamond ring. Now, usually, this is not the sort of email that you should click on. But in the message, the lawyer said specifically that the ring had been left to Marissa S., daughter of Steve and Marcy from Monrovia, California. That was me. I reached out to my parents, who confirmed that the woman who had died was part of their church many years ago. She had moved to Canada shortly before I was born, but before she left, she made me a baby blanket. I never met her. I had never heard of her. But now, when I needed help, she had the generosity and foresight to leave me a beautiful antique diamond ring. My prayer was answered in the grace of God and the grace of a stranger providing for me. Because God does provide, and often he provides through other people. I know not every instance of providence is so dramatic or so quick, but I do know that over the course of most of our lives, we will both be someone in need of that grace and someone who has the chance to provide it. The man in our parable today had that chance, and he wasted it. He could have been rich toward God and toward others. He could have filled his land not just with bigger barns, but with his community. And he could have turned outward in his generosity toward God. Then he would have been a truly rich man, no longer talking to himself, but connected and blessed. He missed that opportunity, and that is why he is a fool. I want you to think of the wealthiest people that you know, not wealthy in money alone, but wealthy in life and in happiness. I'm sure you've all heard the studies that show that once people's needs are met and they have a little extra, gaining more money does not add to happiness. Everyone needs to have enough. But beyond that, accumulating wealth does not bring a truly good life. Who do you have in mind when you think of someone with true wealth? I bet that their lives are filled with faith and overflowing with love in a way that is clear to everyone around them. When I think of someone with enviable wealth, I think of a mentor in ministry who I once heard ask about her and her wife's finances. "Ah," she said dismissively, "we live like queens." And they do, not because of any financial excess, but because their home is full of love and faith, of laughter and generosity, and always enough to share. When I started worshiping at an Episcopal church last year, I was struck by the beauty of one particular part of your liturgy, and that's the dismissal that Deacon Steve says at the end of every worship service. In many ways, it is an answer and an antidote to this parable of the rich fool. You know it. It begins, "Friends, life is short." Already we are acknowledging our mortality, which the rich man chose to forget. It continues, "We do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us." There again, we diverge from the rich man in wishing to gladden each other's hearts, not just our own, and travel together along the way. As a result of our mortality and our love for our community, we are then urged to practice love, kindness, peace, and service. In other words, to be rich toward God and toward our neighbor. To not be fools, but have the wisdom to embrace true wealth in our lives. So let me close with those beautiful and wise words. Friends, life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us. So be swift to love, make haste to be kind, and go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.